Welcome to a coach approach to growing your employees. When you hear the word coach, what image comes to mind? If you're like most people, you think of like an athletic coach, like a basketball or a volleyball coach, or possibly a professional football coach. Someone who is standing on the sidelines, barking out orders, barking out commands to the players on the field. Or you may be someone who thinks about maybe a mentor or an advisor. Or maybe some wise old sage like Gandalf on Lord of the Rings, who is imparting his wisdom to an apprentice who is just hungry to receive it. While those images are not totally wrong, they're probably not the most helpful when it comes to the type of coaching that I'm talking about. You see, the kind of coaching that I'm talking about is more like a stagecoach, one of those Western stagecoaches that helps transfer people from where they're at to where they want to be. In fact, coaching, if it's about anything, it's about movement. It's about moving people towards their various life destinations. It could be career advancement, it could be increased productivity, better relationships, better finances, or even better health. And unlike an athletic coach or a mentor, a coach doesn't tell the person where they need to go or even how to get there. In fact, the key assumption in coaching is that the person being coached, also known as the coachee, has the creativity, has the resources, and the mental capacity to determine where he or she wants to be, and the ability to explore the various options for getting there in the most effective, the most efficient, and the most fulfilling way. And so coaching is not about giving advice. It's not about solving problems. What it is about drawing out the inner wisdom within the person being coached. In fact, there's a great proverb that speaks of this, Proverbs 20, verse 5, that says, "The purposes of a human heart are deep waters, but those who have insight draw them out." In fact, that proverb, I think, gets to the heart of what coaching is, because the coach assumes that the person being coached has this deep well of life experience, this deep well of knowledge, and the wisdom that goes along with that. And the coach has the tools. That coach has the tools that helps draw out that wisdom. Tools such as active listening or powerful questioning. And also the ability to engage with the person being coached in a very structured conversation that helps move the person to their goals. And when done well, or even partially well, the result is growth. And so that's a quick recap of what coaching is and what coaching isn't. But as a manager, as a supervisor, or as some other business or nonprofit leader, you may want to know, well, what's the benefit? What's the real benefit to me and my organization? Well, there are a lot of benefits to coaching, but I'd like to just talk about three. The first benefit is that coaching means that you do not have to have all the answers. Sometimes leaders think they need to be experts at everything. They need to be experts on how to hit the quarterly sales goals or how to fix the copy machine. But when a leader is willing to let go of that need to have all the answers, he or she will find that a coach approach to growing your employees is actually quite liberating, actually quite freeing, because you find out that you don't need to be an expert in everything. You don't need to be able to solve everybody's problems. You simply need to be proficient in coaching. In fact, with a few coaching tools, you will find that you can pretty much coach anybody around any workplace challenge, whether it's in your wheelhouse or not. So again, a benefit of coaching is that you don't need to have all the answers. Another benefit of coaching is that coaching trains others to think for themselves. There is a place for advising, there is a place for mentoring, but if the employees are always bringing their problems to you, they're never going to develop the problem-solving skills that is needed, that they need to be great leaders themselves. Again, a key assumption is that the employees have the creativity, they have the resources, they have the mental capacity to solve their problems, or at least know where to look for them. And so coaching challenges them to not hand over all their problems to you, but rather to roll up their sleeves and to begin to solve the problems themselves. So again, coaching trains others to think for themselves. And finally, what coaching does, coaching creates momentum. It ensures momentum. Again, coaching is about movement. It's about moving people from point A to point B, or from where they're at in an organization to where they want to be. It's about movement. In fact, without movement, a coaching conversation isn't really a coaching conversation at all. It's just a nice conversation. So coaching is about movement. In that regard, it's a great tool for helping people to get unstuck. People who are stuck in indecisiveness. It's a great tool for getting people to be unstuck and moving it towards their goals. In fact, I would suggest that it's almost impossible to be coached and to remain unstuck, because a good coaching conversation always ends in 3 or 4 action steps that, if acted on, will ensure movement forward. Anyway, that's 3 benefits of coaching. And in the next segment, what I'd like to do is talk about the coaching conversation. In the last video, I talked about what coaching is and what coaching isn't, and I talked about the benefits of coaching. In this video, what I'd like to talk about is what a typical coaching conversation looks like. We all engage in a variety of conversation in a variety of business and social settings throughout the day. And although a coaching conversation is like a normal conversation, what makes it different is that it works within a particular framework that we refer to as a coaching model. A coaching model is simply just a structure that helps guide the flow of the coaching conversation. And there's really a wide variety of coaching models. One of the more common models and one of the more easiest to learn models is called the GROW model. The GROW model is very simple, yet very powerful. It's a great model because it can be used in a variety of circumstances, a variety of sessions lasting anywhere from a few minutes to an hour or so. And what makes it simple, it's just limited to 4 stages that follow a simple acronym called GROW. And GROW stands for goal, reality, options, and will. And what I'd like to do in this video is walk you through each of those stages. And so again, the GROW model begins with G. It begins with the goal. A goal is important for the coach to have and also for the person being coached in order that they might know the direction that they're trying to go. There's a variety of long and short-term goals that can be addressed, coached around over several sessions, but it's important for each session. It's important that each session would have its own unique goal. In other words, what would a win look like at the end of this particular conversation? And having that sort of clarity around a particular goal would not only ensure that the conversation would stay on track, but also gives us a way to be able to measure the success of that particular coaching session. For example, let's say we have an employee who's dealing with a time management issue. Maybe it's beginning to affect his performance. Now, the long-term goal that may be able to be addressed over several coaching sessions might just be improved time management. But a goal for one particular session may simply be to come up with 1 or 2 or 3 options that, if applied, will move the person towards or forward towards the long-term goal of improved time management. So all coaching conversations begin with a goal. And the value of a goal is, again, it gives you direction, but it also begins to close the gap between where you want to go and your current reality, which is really the second stage of the GROW model, R. R equals reality. Again, G helps define where you want to go. R defines where you are right now. And so what the coach does during this stage, he begins to explore this reality from a lot of different perspectives to understand, what is exactly going on here. Possibly even identify some distortions or denials that may be preventing the person from moving forward. For example, thinking again about the time management issue. During a normal discussion, the coaching conversation, what may be revealed is there's a pattern of this particular employee always being late to work. But through a little bit deeper inquiry, the coach may discover that really what we're dealing with here is really an avoidance thing. Maybe the person doesn't want to get to work early. Maybe he's sabotaging himself. He doesn't want to get to work on time because it may force him to interact with somebody that he really doesn't want to interact with. Somebody that shows up a little bit early themselves. The point being, again, the reality is that this may not be a time management issue. It could also be a relationship issue. And this is something that would be discovered during the reality stage. It would be uncovered. And the more clarity you can get around reality, the better you are equipped to be able to look at the various options for moving forward. And that's the third stage, is options. O is for options. You know, when you're dealing with any sort of workplace issue, there's a variety of options for solving it. But what happens is that people often get fixed in some of the failed options of the past. They get stuck. And so the coach's responsibility during this stage is to, help the person move past some sort of these limiting beliefs, and help them to be able to see the wide range of options available for closing the gap again between where they're at and where they want to be. And what's important at this stage is to remember that there's not one correct option. In fact, at the option stage, really quantity is better than quality, which means that there's no bad options, which also means that the coach's job is not to judge any particular options, but just ask some good questions and help gets all the options on the table, no matter how silly they may appear. Again, thinking about the time management issue, one very viable option may be just throw all the existing time management techniques that the person is using out. Get rid of his day planner, maybe get rid of the Google Calendar, or possibly even get rid of the alarm clock. These may seem impractical options, but really what the coach is doing is popping the lid off their thinking, beginning to help them to explore some new options, some new things they can do in order that they can move to the next stage, is finding out the things that they will do. And that's the fourth stage, W. W stands for will. What will the person do? Again, by this time in the conversation, there's all sorts of options on the table. None of them are dumb options. In fact, if the coach has done a good job of drawing out particular options from the coachee, and the coachee has done a great job of brainstorming the options, it's likely that you're going to end up with a whole pile of options. But you don't want the person being coached to leave the conversation with that whole pile of options, because what will happen, he'll quickly become overwhelmed by all the things that he can do. And so at this particular stage, it's the coach's responsibility to help narrow down the options to the ones that he is most committed to doing, the ones that have the greatest chance of success. In fact, at this particular stage, a tool that is very helpful that I'll talk about in the next video is just simply a SMART tool that helps identify, which options are the most doable, which options are the most achievable. Anyway, that's a very quick overview of the GROW model. Hopefully you're beginning to see that it's easy to learn, it's easy to memorize, but more importantly, hopefully you're beginning to see that it's a great tool for growing your employees towards success, towards greater performance. But in order to get the most value out of the GROW model, it's important that the coach develop some core skills called competencies that will help guide the coachee through the GROW process to help them get closer to their goals. And that's what we're going to talk about in the next video. In the last video, I walked you through an easy coaching method, a very effective coaching method called the GROW model. In this video, what I'd like to do is just introduce you to some core skills, also known as competencies, that will help you navigate through the GROW model. The International Coach Federation, they list, I think it's 11 core competencies that you need in order to become a credentialed coach. But I suggest that if you have a basic knowledge of at least 3 of the core competencies, you'll be well on your way to being able to coach your own employees. The 3 competencies that are skills that I want to talk about today include active listening, powerful questioning, and facilitating action steps. Let's first think about active listening. Active listening is probably one of the most important, if not the most important coaching skill, because it's out of active listening that you're able to generate some powerful questioning. And it's out of powerful questioning that you're able to facilitate the action steps that will move your employee towards their goal. And some suggest that when it comes to listening, there are actually 3 levels of listening. The first level is the lowest level, and it's simply referred to as listening to a person. Listening to a person. Sometimes we listen in a variety of ways, but when we listen to a person, we're really not listening to them. We're listening in a way that, how does the information that they're trying to convey, how does it affect me? What does the information mean to me? So it's more like me-centered listening. And actually in that particular level of listening, the person is also easily distracted by the things going on in the room. It could be text that you're getting on the phone. It could be side conversations, or even the conversation going on in your head. Anyway, level 1 is kind of the lowest level of listening, and it's pretty much the level that we listen to on a daily basis, that we listen at on a daily basis. So if you want to be a good coach, you need to at least begin to move into what's called level 2 listening, which is listening with the person. You know, when you're listening with the person, you're really tracking the person you're coaching. So much so that you're able to reflect back a lot of the information that the person has said. In fact, a good coach, as they're coaching somebody, what they'll do is periodically summarize what the person has said. Not really parroting the words, but just capturing the thoughts. And unlike level 1 listening, in level 2 listening, you're not so much easily distracted by the external things or even the internal thoughts in your head. No, you're very keenly focused on the coach, so much so that you're actually beginning to listen beyond the words. In fact, you're starting to go into what's called level 3 listening, which is listening for the person. You know, most of us know that listening or speaking or communication goes beyond simple words. People communicate with emotions, they communicate with voice inflection, and they communicate with body language. But most of the time, the person being coached are so focused on just getting their thoughts out in the right words that they actually they're not unaware of the communication that's going on beyond the words. And again, what a good coach does, a coach is able to just kind of look beyond the words and to begin to pick up things that the person being coached might not even begin to notice. You know, things like repeated words or emotions or certain body language. You know, often those things are communicated to the person being coached simply with expressions like or statements like, you know, I noticed when you were talking about possibly getting that new position, you got really excited. You know, or I noticed when you were talking about this one particular issue, you used the word fear a lot. You know, those are observations that are made really at level 3 listening, observations that can help the person being coached become incredibly aware or more aware of themselves. And it can also help the coach go into the second core competency, which is powerful questioning. You know, why are questions powerful? In a nutshell, questions are powerful because, again, they are generated out of active listening. They create new awareness for the person being coached, but they also move the person ultimately towards the action steps. And there's a lot of different types of questions, but powerful questions seem to have some of the same common characteristics. For one, powerful questions tend to be open-ended. You know, you can have questions that are either open-ended or closed. And, you know, a closed-ended question, most of us are familiar with that. A closed-ended question is usually a question that can be answered by a simple yes-no, such as, do you like your job? You know, it's a simple yes-no question. Now, although those aren't bad, closed-end questions aren't always bad, but a good coach wants to limit those closed questions, because usually what happens is they have to be followed up with another questions, and they really, you know, limit the information that they're getting from the person being coached. So a good coach, again, will kind of gear towards open-ended questions, because open-ended questions, they help get the person to think. They help create this new awareness. So instead of simply asking a question like, do you like your job? You may ask an open-ended question like, well, what do you like about your job? What are some of the things that you really like about your job? And that's, again, going to stimulate possibly some new awareness. So again, powerful questions are open-ended. But powerful questions are also not leading questions. Again, coaching is about getting people to think. And so leading questions tend to violate that particular principle, because the answer is often built right into the question. You know, a good example would be, let's say, again, you're dealing with someone with a time management issue. You might say something like, what do you think about getting up 20 minutes earlier in order to get to work on time? Now, although that's not a bad question, again, it's a leading question because the answer is built within that particular question. The idea of getting up 20 minutes earlier. Now, the problem is that the coachee, the person being coached, might say, oh, that's a great answer. That's a great suggestion. That's what I'll do. But unfortunately, the odds are that that person probably won't do that,
because they don't own it, because they didn't create it. It didn't come from them. You see, people being coached are more likely to do what they say they're going to do if they own the particular option, if they own the action step. So again, good, powerful questions are not leading questions. So again, a good example would be, instead of, did you consider getting up 20 minutes earlier? You might say, what are some things that you can do that will help ensure that you will get to work on time? And so again, powerful questions are not leading questions. And also, powerful questions tend to be short and concise. Many coaches, including myself at times, we tend to ask a question that's kind of long and wordy and rambling. And so what happens is, you get this kind of confused look on the person you're coaching, and so what you do is the coach begins to just spend a few minutes trying to unpack that particular question so it makes more sense. And there's a couple things wrong with that. For one, it indicates that probably the coach is probably talking a little bit more than he or she should be. Again, coaching is about the person being coached. It's not about the coach. And so if anybody should be talking, it's the coachee. And another problem with a long and rambling type question, it can easily cut off the good flow of the conversation. In other words, the person being coached is thinking so much about the question and what it means that they never get around to actually answering the question. So it cuts the flow of the conversation. Another problem with rambling type questions, it really is an indicator that maybe the coach is spending too much time in his own head, thinking about questions, trying to, again, to evaluate the situation, rather than being fully present with the person being coached, and really just learning just to respond to whatever is being said, back and forth, back and forth. What some would say, it's kind of like a dance going on. So again, ideally, powerful questions are very short, they're very concise, instead of long and wordy. And if that's done well, then that's going to help facilitate the next step, which is facilitating action steps. Again, as we said before, a coaching conversation without action steps is actually just a nice conversation. But a coach's responsibility is to work with the person to design action steps that'll help move the person from where they are to where they want to be, or from their current reality to their goal. And although there's a lot of different places that, that idea of designing actions could occur in the GROW model, most often it occurs within the O stage, the option stage. And if the coach has done his or her job well, by the time you get to the end of the O stage, you're going to have, again, a whole variety of options for moving forward. And at that particular time, it's the coach's responsibility to begin to narrow those options down, again, from the ones that they could do to the ones they will do, by way of action steps. And again, there's a lot of tools available to help kind of narrow that down. A very good tool that'll narrow it down and actually help make it very specific is what's called the SMART tool. SMART is simply an acronym that's good to be applied to the various options or coming up with the action steps. And SMART, again, is just simply an acronym that means specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And so a good example for this is, let's say the person decides, the person's concerned about time management, so he says, I think I need to read some time management books, which again is a very good goal, but it's a little bit too general. And so the coach can help them put the goal within the SMART framework in order to help ensure that it gets done. So for example, the person could say, I'm going to read the first chapter of Stephen Covey's 7 Habits book, and I'm going to do it within 2 weeks. And so that fits pretty well within the SMART framework because it's very specific. It's a certain book. It's measurable. It's one chapter. It's hopefully achievable. It's relevant to time management. And it's also time bound because the person said they're going to do it in a couple weeks. So the idea of applying the SMART to these action steps help ensure that they're going to actually get done. They're going to get finished. Anyway, that's a broad overview of some 3 core competencies that are very important to get you on the road towards coaching your employees. Again, it's active listening, it's powerful questioning, and what it is and it's also facilitating action steps. And hopefully through these 3 videos, what you've got is again a good overview of how you can coach your employees. You can grow your employees, or take a coach approach to growing your employees. But like any tool, you know, the coaching is a good tool that can easily be learned. But like any tool, it takes a certain amount of training and practice to get really good at it. So that's why I offer kind of an extended version of this training. So you can go deeper into the concepts and also begin to apply some very practical steps for having it work within your own organization. Anyway, if you'd like more information about that, you know, just respond to the link below this particular video, or send me an email to chuckgohncoaching@gmail.com, and I'd be glad to follow up with you. Thanks again for being with me.